Meet Malik Scott, CEO of one of the most successful hotel chains in the world, is used to being in control. He built his empire brick by brick, hotels that symbolize elegance, status, and the kind of excellence most people only dream about. He's the visionary behind the brand, the face behind the prestige. But tonight, he's just another name in the reservation system. No red carpet. No announcement. Just another guest blending in with the crowd. But that's exactly what he wanted. Until the moment he stepped to the front desk, and saw it in Susan's eyes. That split second of hesitation, the questioning glance, the subtle shift in her tone. It was more than just a customer service hiccup, it was a judgment made before a word was spoken. Was it a glitch in the system? Or something far deeper? As the night unfolds, Malik begins to realize the issue isn't the room booking, it's the invisible walls people still put up. The assumptions. The unspoken rules of belonging. The quiet bias that hides behind polite smiles and polished professionalism. What if success doesn't protect you from prejudice? What if even in the empire you built, you're still treated like a stranger? This isn't just a reservation error. It's a story about perception, power, and the quiet battles we fight when no one's watching. Malik Scott didn't inherit a legacy, he built one. From cracked sidewalks and narrow hallways in a neighborhood where dreams were often replaced by survival, he found his purpose not in what the world handed him, but in what it tried to deny him. He was the kid who studied business books borrowed from the public library while others were caught in cycles they didn't choose. He learned early that the world wouldn't make space for him, he'd have to carve one out himself. And he did. From managing a small boutique to hotel in his 20s to launching a hospitality empire, Malik's journey was not anything accidental. Every contract signed, every property acquired, every sleepless night, each was a statement, I belong here. His hotels are now symbols of excellence, spaces where elegance and innovation meet, where culture is embraced, not erased. His name stands proudly on the facade of luxury resorts across continents. People recognize his work, his brilliance, his brand. But even now, with all his accolades and accomplishments, Malik knows there's a part of him the world still tries not to see. Not because of what he lacks, but because of what he represents. He's not just a CEO, he's a black CEO. And that distinction, subtle yet glaring, has followed him into every boardroom, every negotiation, every social encounter cloaked in civility. Behind the tailored suits and high-rise offices, Malik carries the weight of something heavier, bias. It's not always loud or obvious. It lives in tone, timing, posture, and glances. It lives in the moments when someone talks over him at a meeting, assumes he's the assistant instead of the boss, or praises him with a tinge of surprise, as if his excellence is unexpected. So when Malik decides to check into one of his own properties quietly, without announcement, without privilege, it isn't just a casual visit, it's a silent test. A test of the very culture he's created. Are his hotels truly inclusive? Do his staff treat every guest with dignity, regardless of appearance or assumptions? The lobby he enters is a masterpiece, polished marble floors, chandelier lights reflecting off high-gloss surfaces, the scent of fresh orchids perfuming the air. It's a place that whispers sophistication. A place built to impress. But beauty means little if bias still lurks beneath. The moment Malik steps to the front desk, reality hits harder than expected. The receptionist, Susan, isn't openly hostile. She's not rude. But it's in the pause before she greets him, in the flick of her eyes from his face to his clothes to the reservation list, in the moment her professional tone turns just slightly distant. It's in the delay before she even looks for his name. These are the subtleties of unconscious bias, the kind you can't always prove but always feel. To an outsider, it might look like standard procedure. But Malik knows better. He studied these cues his entire life. And in this space, his space, he realizes just how deeply embedded these silent signals are. He's not just a guest tonight. He's a witness to the very thing he's tried to fight from day one. And that's when it begins, not a confrontation, but a quiet unraveling. A reflection. A slow recognition that success doesn't exempt you from being judged. And sometimes, the most dangerous assumptions are the ones hidden behind smiles. He takes one last glance around the lobby, the space meant to symbolize excellence. But for Malik, this moment strips away the gloss, revealing a truth much more raw. No matter how high he rises, there will always be places where his presence is questioned. Not by merit, but by bias. And that realization cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Because this isn't just his hotel, it's his mirror. And tonight, it's showing him a reflection he thought he'd outgrown. "Good evening," Malik says evenly, offering the same warmth he would to a business partner. Susan replies with standard professionalism. "Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" There it is, the first thread in what will become a sense of assumptions. Her eyes dart to his face, then to the screen. Her hands begin to move, but slower than usual. It's not about efficiency, it's about comfort. Or lack of it. Yes. Malik Scott. Executive Suite. She begins typing, but Malik can see the subtle tightening of her lips, the slight crease forming between her brows. She's scrolling through the system, but the uncertainty in her posture grows. There's no recognition in her eyes, no acknowledgement of who he is. And maybe that wouldn't matter, if it didn't come with doubt. "I'm sorry, I don't see a reservation under that name," she says. Malik tilts his head slightly. "Could you check under Michael Grant? It may have been booked under my assistant's name." Another glance. Another tap of the keyboard. Another pause. Susan hesitates again before responding, her voice clipped. "There's no reservation under that name either. Perhaps you're thinking of another property?" Her words sound innocent, but the undertone isn't. It's dismissal. It's a veiled assumption that he must be mistaken. That maybe he doesn't belong here. That perhaps he wandered into a space meant for someone else. And it stings, because he knows this dance. He's danced it in meetings, on stages, in circles where he was celebrated publicly but doubted privately. Susan's posture remains composed, but her tone betrays her. Malik remains still, watching her, observing the ease with which she rejects his presence as plausible. He could flash his ID. He could drop a name. He could remind her that this hotel, this desk, this moment, belongs to him. But he doesn't. Instead, he leans forward slightly and speaks with deliberate calm. "I'm sure the reservation is there. This is my hotel." Susan freezes. For a beat, she doesn't respond. Her eyes narrow, flickering from his face to her screen, then to the background, perhaps hoping a manager appears, someone else to validate the unbelievable. She types again. Her fingers move faster now. And then, her expression shifts. Just slightly. Enough for Malik to see it, the flicker of realization. The mistake registers. But there's no apology. No acknowledgement of her assumption. She simply slides the keycard across the counter. Found it. Just a system glitch. Executive Suite, room 1203. Malik takes the card, his fingers brushing hers for a brief second. There's a weight in the air that neither of them acknowledges. It's the unspoken discomfort of a moment gone too far to fix with politeness. A system glitch, Malik repeats quietly. But they both know what really happened. It wasn't the software. It wasn't an input error. It was perception. And it was flawed. He walks away slowly, keycard in hand, heart a little heavier than when he walked in. Behind him, Susan exhales quietly, still saying nothing. Just before he steps into the elevator, Malik glances back. His gaze lingers not on her, but on a photo on the wall behind the desk, a framed portrait from the hotel's opening. In it, Malik stands beside the mayor, cutting the ribbon. The caption reads, Founder and CEO, Malik Scott. Susan never noticed it. And maybe that's the problem. As the elevator doors begin to close behind him, Malik's reflection stares back from the mirrored panels, a man who has built an empire but still finds himself standing at the margins of it. He presses the button for the executive floor, the highest one. The irony doesn't escape him. While the elevator ascends, his mind replays the moment again and again, the delay in her voice, the way she held the keycard like it was a consolation prize rather than an offering of welcome. He's felt that sensation before, in interviews, in conferences, even in private meetings where he was mistaken for security or staff before being recognized. But here, in his own hotel, it cuts deeper. As the doors open, Malik steps into a corridor lined with soft gold lighting and framed art pieces curated from African artists, an initiative he personally championed to reflect diversity in design. He notices one particular painting he approved himself, a powerful abstract work titled Presence, meant to evoke strength in silence. Tonight, the meaning feels different, almost haunting. Presence, yes. But presence without recognition. Strength without acknowledgement. He walks toward his suite, keycard in hand. But even before he reaches the door, he knows, something must change. And not just the system, but the mindset behind it. Inside the suite, Malik sets down his bag with careful precision. The room is beautiful, sleek furniture, ambient lighting, a panoramic city view stretching across the skyline. It's everything he envisioned when designing this floor. But tonight, it feels hollow. He walks to the window, placing a hand on the cold glass. Outside, the city pulses with life, but inside, his thoughts spiral. This wasn't the first time. It won't be the last. But something about today unsettled him more than usual. Maybe because it happened here, under his name, under his brand. Or maybe it's because the hurt wasn't loud. It was quiet. Subtle. It wore a smile and a uniform and hid behind words like glitch. His mind replays the moment Susan slid the keycard across the counter. Not with apology. Not with acknowledgement. Just with the cold efficiency of someone erasing a moment they didn't want to see for what it really was. He thinks of all the times he's walked into rooms and seen the same hesitation in people's eyes. That pause, tiny but telling, before they realize who he is. And it's not just about him. It's about every person who's been sized up, second-guessed, or judged for existing in spaces others don't expect them to occupy. Malik sinks into the leather chair beside the window. The quiet hum of the city filters in through the glass, but his mind is louder, filled with the weight of years spent proving his worth. Not just in business, but in presence. In being seen. A knock interrupts his thoughts. Room service. A bottle of vintage wine, one of the executive floor perks. He nods silently as the attendant sets it down. The young man smiles politely, unaware of the storm brewing inside his guest. As the door clicks shut behind him, Malik picks up the bottle, reading the label. Another symbol. Another luxury. Another illusion of inclusion. He pours a glass and sits back down, thinking about how easily these moments get dismissed. Brushed aside. Diminished to misunderstandings. And how often people like him are told to let it go, to not make a scene, to not take it personally. But it is personal. It always has been. His eyes drift to the framed welcome note on the desk, generic, pre-written, addressed to esteemed guest. But Malik knows, if he'd been properly recognized, there would have been more. A handwritten note. A personal touch. That's how VIPs are treated here. He's treated others that way. But today, he wasn't seen as a VIP. He was barely seen at all. And in that realization, something inside him begins to shift. Not in anger, but in clarity. He's always known bias existed in the world. But now, he's confronting the fact that it seeped into his world, his own institution. And that's more painful than anything else. Because if a place built by him can still fail to see him clearly, then where does that leave the people who don't have his power? His platform? He finishes his glass, but the bitterness isn't from the wine. It's from the truth he's been forced to swallow, again. He leans back, staring at the ceiling, the chandelier's light fracturing into patterns across the room. It reminds him of something his mentor once said: the higher you rise, the more invisible you can become, until you're only seen through the lens of what people expect, not who you truly are. Tonight, those words feel like prophecy. Malik rises again and walks toward the closet, pulling out the plush robe provided by the hotel. Embroidered in gold thread on the chest, M. Scott, Executive Signature Collection. He stares at it for a moment, conflicted. His initials are stitched onto luxury, but not into recognition. And now, the question echoes louder than before: what good is building a kingdom, if you're still treated like a visitor in it? The room is still, but Malik's mind is anything but. He walks back to the window, gripping the curtain edge with one hand, staring at the city that once symbolized opportunity, now overshadowed by a deeper frustration. Not anger. Not outrage. Something heavier. Disillusionment. His phone rings, its screen lighting up with a familiar extension: front desk. He hesitates before answering. Mr. Scott, Susan's voice comes through, controlled and courteous, but noticeably tighter now. We just wanted to follow up and make sure everything is to your satisfaction. Please don't hesitate if you need anything. It's a textbook recovery call. But Malik hears what's really behind it: discomfort. She knows. Or maybe someone told her who he is. Maybe she saw the photo on the wall after all. Either way, it's not guilt in her voice, it's damage control. He pauses for a moment, then responds, calm but deliberate. Everything's fine, Susan, he says, tone clipped. But in the future, don't assume who someone is based on how they look. Especially not here. Silence. Susan's heart beat faster. Then the hollow reply: of course, Mr. Scott. My apologies again for the confusion. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. He ends the call and places the phone down slowly, staring at it as if it's holding all the unsaid things he wanted to express. But words wouldn't have been enough, not for this. Because this isn't just about one employee's behavior. It's about the culture that allowed it to happen so easily. About how perception has more power than policy. And how even in the institutions he built, bias still finds its way in, quiet, polite, smiling. He paces the room, the soft carpet muffling the heaviness in his steps. His thoughts are racing now, connecting dots he's ignored for too long. Staff training modules, HR checklists, diversity initiatives, they've all been implemented. But have they truly changed the lens through which people see? Or have they just masked deeper issues under layers of formal protocol? He stops at the minibar, takes a bottle of water, but doesn't drink. His reflection catches in the mirror across the room, and he studies it, not his suit, not his status, but his eyes. There's fatigue there. Not from work, but from constantly having to prove. Constantly having to correct. Constantly having to exist in duality, CEO on paper, suspect in person. He remembers a conversation from years ago with another black executive, who once said, "Our resumes get us in the room, but our skin still decides how we're treated when we get there." Tonight, that truth feels sharper than ever. He returns to the window again. The city still glows beneath him, unaware of the storm within him. He thinks about his guests, his employees, his brand. What it represents. What it hides. And most importantly, what it needs to become. Because change doesn't start with apologies. It starts with accountability. And tonight, Malik realizes, it's time to challenge not just the mistakes, but the mindset that allows them to repeat silently. He turns from the window and walks toward the desk, grabbing the hotel's branded notepad. He flips it open, scribbling a few words that come to him instinctively: belonging is not luxury. It's dignity. He stares at the sentence for a moment, then underlines it. That one thought encapsulates everything he's feeling. This isn't just about being seen, it's about being seen rightly. Not through the lens of stereotypes, not through polished assumptions or polite exclusion. But through the lens of truth, humanity, and respect. That's when it becomes clear. This isn't just a personal issue, it's a leadership crisis. And Malik knows he can't afford to lead in silence anymore. The words on the notepad stare back at him: belonging is not luxury. It's dignity. Malik reads them again, then reaches for the phone, not out of anger, but out of purpose. He dials the direct line to Lucas, the hotel's general manager. It's late, but this can't wait. Lucas, he says as the line clicks open, his voice steady but resolute, I need to speak with you. Not tomorrow. Tonight. There's a pause, then a tired voice responds. Of course, Mr. Scott. What's going on? Malik doesn't hesitate. We need to talk about how our team sees people. About what happened tonight, and what it really means. Lucas arrives at the suite 15 minutes later, visibly concerned. He offers polite greetings, but Malik waves them off. He isn't interested in pleasantries. He's here for change. I was treated like a stranger in my own hotel, Malik begins. Not because of a missing reservation. But because of a mindset. Lucas shifts uncomfortably. Susan's one of our best, and that's the problem, Malik interrupts. If one of our best can carry that kind of bias, even unintentionally, what does that say about the rest of our staff? Silence fills the room. Malik lets it linger. This isn't just about me. I'll recover. I have power, a voice. But what about the guests who don't? What about the people who walk in here every day and are made to feel like outsiders, subtly, quietly, without a single word said? Lucas nods slowly, absorbing the weight of the conversation. We've done the trainings, he says. We've talked about diversity, but have we changed how people see? Malik asks. Because if we haven't, then all we've done is polish a surface that's still cracked underneath. He walks over to the notepad and tears off the page. He hands it to Lucas. This is where we start. Lucas reads it: belonging is not luxury. It's dignity. Malik continues, I want every single employee retrained, not just on policy, but on perception. On what it means to truly see people. I want anonymous audits. I want bias response protocols. I want real accountability. Lucas straightens. You'll get it. And one more thing, Malik adds. I want guest stories shared. Stories of where we failed them, and how we fix it. No more hiding behind 5-star ratings if we can't guarantee 5-star humanity. Lucas nods again, firmer this time. Understood. As he leaves, Malik exhales, deeply. Not with relief, but with resolve. This was never about one mistake. It was about shifting a culture. And tonight, that shift has begun. He walks back to the window, watching the city again. But now, the view feels different. Not clearer, but purposeful. Because from this moment on, he's not just building hotels. He's rebuilding what it means to belong. Before Lucas leaves, Malik adds one more thought, his voice slower now, more introspective. And Lucas, this isn't just a correction plan. It's a new standard. I want this hotel to be the pilot location. If we're serious about equity, then let this place become the blueprint. A model others will follow, not because of what it looks like, but because of how it makes people feel. Lucas nods, clearly moved by the weight of the request. We'll make it happen. Malik offers a faint smile, something between gratitude and exhaustion. Good. Because the next time someone like me walks through that door, I want them to feel like they never had to prove they belonged here in the first place. And for the first time tonight, Malik feels the burden begin to shift, from internal disappointment to external purpose. The night has grown quieter. The city lights still shimmer beyond the windows, but inside Malik's suite, a different kind of brightness has settled, clarity. He sits once more by the desk, looking at the note he wrote earlier. Belonging is not luxury. It's dignity. It's more than a line, it's a mission. A redefinition of what hospitality should mean. For years, Malik focused on elegance, service, prestige. But tonight, he's seen what all those things mean when the foundation isn't built on empathy. True excellence, he realizes, isn't just in polished marble or exclusive floors, it's in the unseen moments. The unspoken respect. The dignity that every person is owed, regardless of what they wear, where they're from, or how they're perceived. He thinks about his journey, how far he's come, how hard he's fought. But also, how much farther there is to go, not just for him, but for everyone who carries invisible burdens into public spaces. The fight for equality doesn't end at the door of success. It must continue behind every front desk, in every training room, in every quiet moment when no one's watching. He walks to the suite's entrance, placing the notepad with his handwritten message near the door for housekeeping to find in the morning. A quiet symbol. A gentle disruption. And he wonders, what if more leaders made space for humanity over formality? What if more CEOs viewed inclusion as a core value, not a checkbox? The road ahead won't be perfect. He knows this. But progress never is. Still, tonight matters. Because somewhere in the reflection of city lights and the silence of a luxury suite, a deeper truth emerged: real change starts not with loud speeches, but with quiet courage. And Malik has plenty of that. What happened to Malik wasn't just a story, it's a mirror. A reflection of how deeply bias can sit in the corners of our lives, hiding behind formality, professionalism, and assumed neutrality. You might not be a CEO. You might not own a hotel. But chances are, you've stood in Malik's shoes, or perhaps, unknowingly, played the role of Susan. Maybe you felt dismissed before you were heard. Judged before you were known. Or maybe, you've made an assumption, a snap judgment, without realizing the weight it carried. That's why this story matters. Because behind every system glitch, there's often a deeper misalignment, one we rarely stop to address. But today, you've seen it. You've felt it. And now, you can choose what to do with it. Have you ever been overlooked, judged, or made to feel like you didn't belong, even when you did everything right? Or have you witnessed it happen to someone else? What did you do? What will you do next time? Let know in the comments, and if you believe stories like this need more light, more reach, more impact, click like, hit subscribe, and join this journey. Because Malik's story isn't just his. It's ours. And real change starts when we're willing to listen, really listen, to the stories beneath the surface.